You can see me play live and get gameplay like you'll see in this video by subscribing and looking out for my streams, generally pushing out between 3 and 6 a week. I'll see you there. Alright, I've been streaming BF1 a lot. A lot of you that follow the channel will know this. If you didn't know this, then tune in for the streams, they're really fun. And I didn't think this was going to be a relevant idea anymore, but people have been asking me for my settings on Battlefield 1. Again, it's like 4 or 5 years old. Even if it doesn't get a whole lot of views, it should be helpful. So this is my updated settings guide for Battlefield 1 in 2021. It's specifically console play focused, so it will apply to Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PS4 and PS5, while also some of it will apply to PC but not all. I'm going to be as in-depth as possible about the aspects that I think are most important, whilst trying not to make it too long because the menus can be very confusing in Battlefield 1, and I know you need help, but let's not bore you. So I'll help you to find your best settings. Don't simply copy all of mine, as everyone is different. Here we go. This video is brought to you by the epic Patreon supporters on the Board of Awesome and the channel members, who you can join for exclusive channel perks by hitting the join button below should you wish. And the current goal for the channel is to hit 70k subscribers, currently sitting at 62k, and with most people watching via recommendations rather than subscriptions, so there's a lot of room for growth. Hitting that sub button to not miss my videos and regular streams would be fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, I've just eaten way too much McDonald's and now I'm going to try and talk for 10 to 30 minutes or whatever, so let's see how this goes. Into controls first. Vibration. I have vibration on purely because I can't play without it after 20 plus years of using it. Well, whenever they put it in PlayStation 2 or whatever, but I'm used to using it on an FPS game. I can't get used to not using it, but if you are able to get used to using it and play well, I highly recommend you turn it off, because then it's not another distraction. It doesn't throw off your aim with the vibrations, etc. I know a lot of competitive or pro players play with vibration off. That would be my tip, but if you can't, be like me and there you go. Very simple. Invert vertical look is, with it off, it's just normal. So you push up, it will look up. Push down, it will look down. If you turn it on, if you pull down on the stick, you will look up like you're flying a plane or something like that, but like your actual soldier. So you choose whatever is best for you. For most of you, it will be off. Invert vertical flight, so the same thing but for planes. Soldier stick sensitivity and vehicle stick sensitivity, they are different from zoom sensitivity. So it would make sense, to be honest, to have these about the same. I just don't use vehicles, so I don't really mess with that. But the soldier stick sensitivity is you're looking around without looking in ADS. So just when you're running around normally. I have mine at 55%. Get it however you prefer it. It's mainly relevant for your looking around, but it will still play a part when you're hip firing or trying to center your crosshairs before you ADS. If you're flying way past where you want to look, turn it down. If you're not getting there fast enough, turn it up. Same thing with vehicle stick sensitivity. I would probably keep them the same, unless you just much prefer having one faster or slower than the other. But keeping them the same will be good for your muscle memory generally. Then soldier zoom sensitivity is when you're actually aiming down your sights. So I have mine at 90%. Again, tweak it to find what works for you. Once more, if you're over aiming and flying past the target, turn it down. If you're not getting there fast enough, turn it up. If you do want to drastically change what you're doing, so if you want it to be much faster or you want to be more precise with it going slowly, I wouldn't recommend just suddenly going up to, you know, whatever, up to like, oh, I'm now going to play at 130%. No, my recommendation is what I did on Call of Duty way back in the day, is go at whatever you're at and then slowly in increments increase it or decrease it until you get to where you want to be. So maybe go from 90% if you want to increase it, start playing at 100, get used to that, then go up to 110, etc. until you find where you want to be at. Okay, onwards. Soldier sprint. I have it at press, which is where for me, I will press in the stick and I'll start to run forwards. Holding it, you may prefer some of you, but I think it's a pain. It starts to fatigue your thumb, and if you actually don't keep the pressure down, you stop sprinting. The press is just where you press it and you run, and then when you do an action like you stop or you start to shoot or something, you'll stop sprinting. I find it to be much better, but you could also just do double tap forward to sprint if you prefer. So if you just quickly tap the stick forward twice, you'll start to sprint. I don't do that, but again, something to keep in mind. And then horse sprint, I have out on press as well. I would usually match this up with whatever I'm doing on the soldier sprint, again for good muscle memory. Now for soldier weapon zoom, so actually aiming down your sights, I have it on hold. That's what most games use and most gamers use. Again, vehicle weapon zoom, same kind of thing. Steady scope, I'm actually going to change this. I'm going to go on press. I've just forgotten to come and change this, even though I use this now on BF5. If you have it on hold, you're going to need to hold the stick in the whole time to steady your breathing, but that might throw off your actual aiming, which you don't want. If you have it on press, you'll just press the stick in and then you can aim as normal. Just remember to press it again up until the point where they can't hold it anymore and then it all goes shaky and whatever. And then bayonet charge, whatever works for you. Again, I'm going press on this one. I generally avoid things that involve holding down the stick because it just affects my actual movement and how many things I'm having to do at once, so press, for me at least. Control schemes. You can read what these do, so I'm not going to explain all of these. I will say that I use alternate because that allows me to crouch with my right stick, so crouch and go prone and slide, stuff like that, and melee with the B button. I'm not huge on meleeing. Battlefield isn't much of a panic melee game, whereas in something like, say, Call of Duty, it is a bit more, or at least traditionally used to be. Anyway, regardless, I always crouch, slide, prone, all of that with the stick. I find it to be much better for me. Something you can keep in mind if you want to try it out. And then because of this, I also use alternate on a horse. I don't really use horses, but if I did, I'd use this because it keeps the melee on the B button. Again, we're focusing on muscle memory and your brain knowing what to press all the time, regardless of what you're doing. The rest, you can just sort for yourself based upon what you prefer. Moving on to advanced now. Stick aiming acceleration. I have this on 100%. So when I hold down to turn right, the more I hold it, the faster it goes, and 100% that I have it on is the fastest acceleration. So you can find what works for you. If you don't want any acceleration and you just want your turning to be exactly what you're doing on the stick, so it just responds to how much you press the stick across, you want it all the way down on 0%. That's not one I can really advise you on. You're just gonna have to play around to see what feels natural for you, but that is how they work. Moving down, center dead zone. This is on the left stick, but we've also got it on the right stick. I have mine on 11% just because that's what I've found that I like to have it on after lots of tweaking. So this and on the right stick, they refer to how much you need to move the stick before the game responds to it. So I have mine down very low because I like a very responsive reaction time within the game for anything I'm doing, but I don't have it all the way down on 0% because you're much more likely to get stick drift, where even if you're not moving the stick, the game might pick up that it's not quite centered, or maybe your controller is just a bit busted up or whatever it may be, and your guy will start to look around without you having pressed anything. So I have mine down at 11% because it's near instantaneous when I move the stick, but it avoids any kind of drift. Now, axial dead zone on both of the sticks. I've just got mine at the midway point. What this does is it cancels out, or it's the amount that the game cancels out, the horizontal or vertical movement depending on where you're pushing the stick. So the lower it is, the more you do for yourself, the more precise it is, I guess, but it might mean you're going to accidentally end up aiming up a little bit when you're trying to look to the right or left, because you're never going to push directly all the way just to the right or left. If you put it up really high, it's going to be very rigid with thinking you're going up, down, left or right, but that might mean you're not as precise with getting things on a diagonal, slightly up and to the right. As I say, I just have mine at the midpoint of 15%. It's something most people are going to leave alone, but at least you now know how it works. And then max input threshold again on the left stick and right stick. This is how much the stick needs to be moved to hit the maximum input. So if I want to move all the way to the right on my left stick with 100% that I use, I need to push the stick all the way to the right. But if you only wanted to move the stick a little bit to hit the maximum input threshold and turn very quickly, you would lower this down to a much lower number. Again, please find what works for you. Take all the time you need going through these settings in BF1, BF5, whatever the next Battlefield is. It is worth it. It just can be very tedious, but at least, as I keep saying, you now know how a lot of these things work. Moving down, controller triggers. Now this I have totally the opposite from my sticks because it's something I don't need to be precise about. The max input threshold is how much you need to pull down on the triggers, or on PlayStation L2 and R2, in order to have the game react. I have mine down all the way at 5%, which means pretty much as soon as I press down on the right trigger, my guy will start firing. Now if you find your controller's a little bit dodgy where the triggers are, or you rest your fingers on them a bit too heavily sometimes and you accidentally aim down sight or shoot, you'll be increasing this up to the necessary point to avoid that. But me personally, I prefer down here so it's more responsive. Moving down, we get to soldier zoom sensitivity, and you'll see that I have all of these down at 100% without any alterations, including for the vehicles, although again I don't really use vehicles, and this is because I keep them all the same for a reason. Where is it? Let me see if I can find it. Uniform soldier aiming on. So let me try to explain this for you. You could, if you want, change all of these to be different things for however you like them. So on a 5 zoom scope, it will move a different percentage to a 2 zoom scope if you want, all that kind of stuff. Again, it's going to really depend how you like to play. Me personally, I don't do that, and instead I have uniform soldier aiming, where is it, on And to use the game's in-game description, this enables the use of procedural aim rate instead of the original preset numbers. The procedural aim rate tries to approximate constant movement in 2D screen space regardless of current field of view, zoom, and mount. This helps with muscle memory for aiming. Basically, the game is approximating how much I want to move by regardless of what it is that I'm actually using. Meaning you can either choose to have everything be very different above for how you like it, or you can have it all feel kind of the same for muscle memory. Either way you can get muscle memory, but you need to get used to either one. Your choice. Now moving back up. Vehicle aim relative control. Right, I'm going to try to explain this as best I can. With this on, your movement, so your left stick, will be affected by or relative to where you're aiming with the right stick. So if you look slightly to the right and then pull back on your controls, you'll move back left diagonally, as far as I can understand. If you have this off, you'll be looking slightly to the right, but the tank or whatever you're using will move directly backwards, not relative to where you're aiming. We could also say that, say with this on, if you aim at 2 o'clock and pull back on the left stick, you will move back towards 8 o'clock, whereas with it off, you should still move back towards 6 o'clock. I hope that helps some of you out there. Moving on, decouple aiming from turning. So say you're driving a vehicle and you're moving it around. This allows you to choose whether you're aiming with a gun within the vehicle is affected by your movement of the vehicle. And then you've also got it for a passenger. So if you're a passenger in a vehicle and your mate or some random is driving the vehicle, if you decouple it like I have, your aim or where you're focusing the gun will remain consistent regardless of the movement of the vehicle you're in. If it's off, it will be moved around with the vehicle. It's a hard one to explain, you might need to go and play around with it, but that's basically what it does. Right, we've done uniform soldier aiming. The coefficient is how much the uniform soldier aiming is affected, the speed of it, based upon the zoom level you're using. So, as the game says there, a greater value results in a higher sensitivity at higher zoom levels. Just tweak this to where you want it. Mine personally is there at 133%. And that's us having gone through the controls. Thank God. Let's move on. Down to gameplay. Show HUD. Right, the vast majority of the time you want this on. So this is your UI, or the elements on screen, like showing your ammo count, your health, all that kind of stuff. The reason to have it off are things like if you want to immerse yourself in the game, if you want to go and get cinematics, if you want to get screenshots, stuff like that. Player created content here, this is whether you show or hide all player created content such as emblems, tags, platoon names, all that kind of stuff. Moving on down to the chat log, this is when you or teammates and people around you call for things, ask for things, mark things, stuff like that. So it comes up that they need ammo, they need health, all that kind of stuff. I have mine on when active, so it pops up when someone requests something. You could have it just completely off if you want, or you could have it there all the time, and then this is just the sizing of all of it and how visible it is. The kill log, I have this on. You should definitely have the kill log on to make sure you've got a kill when you think you have, or whether your teammate has cleared out that guy that was trying to kill you. I have mine up at 100% size and 100% visibility, and then I'm showing all, but I'm actually going to change that for, is there nearby? I'm going to go nearby as I do in BF5. It's up to you what you want. All of them is just all the kills in the game. Nearby is when it's happening around you specifically, which might be more relevant to you, but again, choose what you want. And then moving down to miscellaneous HUD elements, you can just read these and what they are, but you know, whether you want the awards to pop up, reload hints, stuff like that. Moving down, where are we? The scoring, how visible it is. Again, you can understand these, I don't really need to explain those. Onwards to the comma rows. The comma rows is what you're using when you're selecting whether you need ammo, whether you want to mark a certain flag, whether you're telling people to push up or say thanks. That's what the comma rows is, that big circular thing that pops up. And this is just how big it is and how visible it is. You can see I have mine just on the max for each one. These down here, honestly not particularly important. Nope. The inventory, whether it pops up, right, let's explain rather. You know, down at the bottom when it shows your grenade, your ammo, all that kind of stuff. If you have this hidden, it won't ever be there. I don't recommend that, but it's up to you. If you are on show, it's there all the time. You can have when active like I do, so it comes up when you need it. Like if you press to try to get your grenade out or switch your ammo type or something, it will pop up to show you. The rest of the time it won't be there. Vehicle seat info, I don't alter any of these. This is just purely a thing that you need to tweak if you want anything to be different. The crosshair size here, this is how big your crosshair is, so the thing on your screen showing you where you're going to aim in if you press the ADS button. I have mine on the normal 100% and fully visible, and I have it green because to me, for my eyes, that stands out the most. I suggest you pick whatever works best for you. As I keep saying, just don't have it be something that you're then going to see pop up. Like for example, I'll show you here. For me, can I find it? Right, for me, a kill color is red, so I don't want my crosshair red because then I won't know when I've got the kill. So make sure those two things are different. I've also then got the lens sight color, which you can alter as you wish. None of this is particularly relevant. The hit indicator, so these are the hit markers, how big they are and how visible they are. I 100% think you should have these on. Now I have my hit color and my headshot hit color completely the same, because for me, it doesn't interest me particularly whether I'm hitting the head or not. I can usually tell, and I don't want another color popping up distracting me. I just want to know whether I'm hitting them or whether they die. But if you do want to know if you're hitting the headshot, you know, if it's relevant to you somehow, then pick something that's different from your normal hit marker color and your kill color, okay? Now moving on, we have our critical hit color, which I've got on red and actually don't want that. I'm going to change that to something else, because this has been throwing me off recently. I've had this setting wrong, it's been confusing me. So this just tells you when you've had a critical hit. Now I would just leave this on red, that's why I had it on this before, but it's been throwing me off. So sometimes I've had a critical hit kill on a horse, for example, but it's been messing up, unfortunately, and it's been telling me I've been getting kills, like a red hit marker, without them dying for some reason. So I'm going to have it blue so that I maybe know that something's wrong there, so I don't necessarily just stop shooting. Up to you what you do with that. Damage based shape, I have this on. This just changes how the hit marker is represented based upon the damage type you're doing. Receive damage visibility, yes. You want to know if you're being hit and how much by. And now we can move on to the minimap. I have my minimap size up at 130%, a bit larger than other people, because I want to see the minimap very clearly and see more on it, because that then ties in with, if we go down, my on foot zoom radius, so I see more of the minimap, the outer extremities of it, and I'm keeping it large down at the bottoms with this to make it easier for me to read. I think this is very important. It allows you to pick out the enemies that are marked much more easily because the minimap is nice and big and you're seeing more of the map. I highly recommend it. This is everything else I have going on. Nothing too important. You can tweak it how you want it. I do have the minimap rotating with my view. This just helps me to pinpoint, say someone spotted at my 1 o'clock position. If I turn to 1 o'clock, the minimap does the same, and I can see if it's now directly lined up with the center or not. If you prefer just have your person, your actual soldier, rotate on the minimap and the minimap stays still, that's up to you. But for me, this is much more useful. And then you've got your flight zoom radius, your vehicle zoom radius. It honestly helps to have these up as well. Again, I just don't really use vehicles, so I've not really been doing it. But let's keep it all fairly consistent, shall we? You've then got the options to change whether your minimap changes the zoom upon death and stuff like that. I just have mine the same all the time. None of this overly helpful. Show stationary weapons on the minimap. Yes, I want to know where everything is all the time. I have all this down at 100%, so it's all fairly standard. I don't have the compass bearings on because I never looked that detailed down there, try and call out a specific compass location to anyone. I'm not going to be staring down there trying to see a number while I'm focusing on what's going on my screen. But if you want them, then obviously turn them up so they're visible. Moving down. Oh, okay. I've not changed those. Okay, cool. We can move on. World icons. I don't think I've changed anything particularly here, and it's going to be just personal preference. If you want, you can pause while I'm going through these if you want to just mimic how mine always looks on screen. But for me, none of this is overly important. So we're going to move on to advanced. Now these are important. Camera shake scale, I have this all the way down at 30%. This affects how much your camera shakes when there are explosions nearby and stuff like that. If you're going for a very cinematic feel and immersing yourself, then have this all the way up at the maximum that you can. But if you want to be affected as little as possible by explosions and things happening around you so you can maintain your aim, absolutely turn this all the way down. This is a huge tip. Please make sure you do that if performance is your focus. Moving down, soldier auto leaning. This is whether your guy leans around the corner or not when you're near it when you try to aim down sight. I have this on yes. You can have it not do that if you want. The same thing with peeking over cover. The same thing with the parachute, because I don't want to accidentally forget or not press the button properly and have my guy die on impact, so I make sure the parachute opens of its own accord. Context-based order giving, highly recommend this. This is where you can use the spotting button, which is the R1 or RB button by the way, unless you've changed it, to mark flags, because I don't always want to use the comaros. I use the comaros when I need to, but if I'm just looking at a flag, I'll just spot it and that'll mark it as the one that we're going to assault or defend when I'm the squad leader, which also helps you to get more points for carrying out those orders. Down, plane chase camera roll, chooses whether the plane's third person chase camera rolls with the plane. I have this on yes. You can go with no if you want. Moving down, aim assist auto rotation, always one that gets people arguing. Now these days I have this turned on as well as aim assist slowdown because it's what 99% of other people are doing. I wish it wasn't in the game, but it is, so because it is, I'm going to keep myself in a level playing field. Auto rotation is whether you will somewhat snap to the target if you aim near them. I will say in BF1 this is extremely minimal these days, where it used to be really strong and it was a real pain. Now it's very restrictive. It doesn't do a huge amount, so it's up to you. A lot of people, including myself, I think could probably perform basically the same way without it, but I have it on just for that extra little bump if I want to use it. And then aim assist slowdown. This I highly recommend for basically everyone, unless again you just want it to be really realistic or challenge yourself, but this This is where the infantry weapon aim slows down when the reticle is over an enemy target, essentially helping you with that kind of sticky feel to stay on them. Having this off will make it a lot more tricky, and this is where PC players are often like, oh, you need aim assist to play. Well, yeah, we use some thumbsticks. It's a lot more difficult, so I recommend for pretty much everyone to have this on, unless for some reason you just want to have it off. Network performance graph, I have this off, up to if you want it on. Aim lead indicator, I don't have this on. It's just telling you if your ping is high, you need to compensate for it more. I can check my ping by looking at the scoreboard anyway, so I have it off. Moving down, low ping network smoothing. You enable this if you have low ping and other players are jittery. It might make it look a bit better for you, but it also seems to mess with other things like hitboxes and how things are represented on your screen and whatever, so I have this off. Again, it's your choice. And share usage data, it's just whether EA or DICE or whatever get your data while you're playing. I don't care either way. And that is that for gameplay. Coming out of here, we now go to audio. I really hope you appreciate this, because I've now been in this for 36 minutes. The edited version will be much shorter, of course. Master volume, I have this on 100%. This is just the overall volume of the game and everything that entails, but I have my music volume down at 0. Now, again, if you want that cinematic feel, you can have it on if you want. I have it off because I'm a content creator, and I don't want the background music of the game to intersect and mess with the background music that I use within my videos. Also, it helps me to focus up more on what's going on in the game, footsteps, all that kind of stuff, rather than listening to the music kicking in towards the end of the round. Output configuration, I have this on stereo, only go to surround if you're using something that has surround sound, like surround sound speakers or headphones. I don't, I think I'm using stereo headphones. Actually, I'm getting some new headphones today, so I'm going to check those. But for most of you, stereo. If you have something with surround sound, then go surround, okay? Sound preset, I go with headphones because I generally use headphones. This works best for me, but if you're finding it's not working out great for you or you don't use headphones, you can go for something else. I use, as I said, headphones. Language, English, because I'm English. My team speaks my language off. I want this to be at least a little bit authentic, and also it helps if you can hear the enemy speaking in their own language. It also helps you to know on the fly which side you're fighting for. If your guys suddenly start speaking German, you know you're on the German side, and if your friend has entered the game, it's like, oh, which team you on? You could be like, well, I'm German, without going and checking if you weren't sure, or looking at the uniforms, whatever. Game announcer voice, I have this on. This is where it tells you if you're losing butter, if the enemy's about to win, that kind of stuff. You can choose whether they're female or male. VoIP, this is so you can choose whether you want to listen and speak to your squad. If you never want to do this, have this off. If you do want to do this or do this sometimes, have it on. And you can always just go in and mute people or start your own party or whatever it is, and it just completely avoids that. There's the volume, there's subtitles whether you want them on or off, and that's that. Let's move out. We come to video. Now this is going to be completely up to you how you want things for the brightness. Remember, the brightness is also affected by the monitor and how bright that is. If you're recording, how bright you have your actual video output after rendering, or that kind of stuff. But basically, if the game's too dark, turn it up. If the game's too bright, turn it down. Field of view, I have this on 90. Essentially, the more you have this, the more of your peripheral vision you will see, which means you don't have to look around so much to see what's going on around you. I highly recommend turning this up. I think the default is much lower, and it does make a difference. I think a lot of people underestimate how much of a difference it actually makes. It also can make it appear like you have less visible recoil, which can be helpful, because as it's zoomed out more, you're not as affected by it. But I would recommend not going all the way up to here. I mean, you could try it, I guess, but I don't, because you end up with that kind of fisheye look, and I don't want that. My happy place is 90. Vehicle third person field of view, kind of basically the same thing. I've not really changed it because I don't use vehicles, but go and tweak it to what you want. Down, ADS field of view. If you have this on, when you aim down sight, you won't actually be affected and zoomed in by that aiming down sight. It will remain basically the same as you had it before aiming down sight, which means again, you'll have less visible recoil when doing so. It applies the player selected field of view scale when aiming down iron sights as well. Basically, when you aim in, you will retain that wide field of view rather than getting the normal zoomed in one. Now, it may be harder to see what you're looking at with that, but at the same time, it will make it look like, again, you have less recoil. So it's up to you what you want to do. I usually have it off, but I have dabbled in having it on, and I'm still yet to make my decision as to which one I am going to use in the long term. Moving down, motion blur. Have this off unless you want that cinematic or whatever kind of feel. Me, I just want the game to look how the game's supposed to look. I don't want to be getting nauseous by looking around, and I want to see clearly what's going on around me so I can react more quickly. I also, for that reason, have weapon depth of field off. If you have it on, it will blur the edges of your screen when you're aiming down sight. I don't do that because I still want to see what's going on outside of my aiming in case someone runs up on me from the flank or something. But it's up to you if you want to put that on. Colorblind, if you're colorblind or just want the different colors, then you have it on, then choose which one you want. And moving down, I have all of these visual effects off because again, I don't care about it being overly cinematic. I just want to play better. So I want all of those distractions and other things completely gone, including thing, sniper depth of field, which again is like this weapon depth of field here, but for scopes. So yeah, this is just whether you need to adjust your screen bounds. And with that, let me check. We've got just this left, and I don't do any of this, but if you wanted to specifically change some of the buttons for different things, whether it be your soldier, a pilot, whatever, you can do so. But for me, I leave it all alone and just use the standard ones. Where was it? Up here. It's up to you if you want to do that. And finally, that is my super in-depth 2021 Battlefield 1 settings guide, all explained for you to get the best settings for you. If you're really interested in taking your game to the next level, then take the time to get this how you want it. I've done it, and the proof's in the pudding. 3+ KD on BF1, 3+ KD on BF5, top 1% KD in Destiny, all that kind of stuff. I make sure I get this all right to advance my game to where I want it to be. So I hope that helps. If it does, hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe for more videos, loads of streams, and of course, a boatload of content when the next Battlefield drops later this year. All the links to my social media, Twitter, Patreon, Discord, all of that can be found in the description and my pinned comment. Like the video if I didn't already tell you to do it, I may have done. And with all that said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters. It's the Fedorov Avtomat Optical, and how often the Fedorov is picked out by quote-unquote casuals as being a good gun, and then longer-term players sigh because they're like, oh really, the Fedorov? But I'll explain why I genuinely think this is a top-tier option for the more able player. I truly feel it performs way outside of its intended balance capabilities,